G'day guys and gal. Admit it, no matter how much absolute schlock you talk about them, being a high elf would be sick. Not because of the eternal life, or the really high standard of living, or the fact that everyone is super hot. No, that stuff is lame. It's cause you get to ride a dragon. No matter what anyone says, dragons are really cool. The best part about riding a dragon is that anyone who says you are uncool gets incinerated. Riding a dragon is so cool that it actually makes the elven version of Macaulay Culkin seem like a total badass. As such, in our quest to remain ever relevant, despite probably being the only Total War streamer who didn't get early access, we will be covering the lore and story of Prince Imrik of Caledor. If you're wondering why my Imrik looks weird, that's because my version is modded into the game, as that's the only way I can play him until the 22nd of March. That's right, Australia is a day ahead of you guys, so the wait is even more agonizing for me. Hell yeah, dude. Today we'll go over who Imrik is and why he's a bit of an entitled little shizen. Imrik really gets a front and center stage during the end times, so we'll also cover what he gets up to then. Disclaimer, the Elven End Times is really poorly written. I'm not saying that as a, "Oh, End Times bad, give me subs" kind of way. I'm saying that in a, I'm in love with Warhammer fantasy lore, and despite parts of the End Times being quite good, the majority of the High Elf plot generally makes me want to pretend to like One Mind Syndicate while slowly lowering myself into a vat of acid kind of way. I did actually do my best to fix this in another video, which a lot of you guys said was now your headcanon, so feel free to watch that after this if you want to try and burn Imrik's End Times out of your brain. Let's get into it. The High Elves are the epitome of white privilege. They are a race of arrogant Aryans who see all other races as inferior. I would say their main issue with the Dark Elves isn't the fact that they are sadistic pricks, but more so because they have dark hair instead of blonde. Now imagine that you get people that think they are too cool for school, and then you give them dragons. That is Caledor and its people. Now let's take it one step further and say that you, the High Elf leader of Caledor, are also the last in the line of legendary Caledor Dragon Tamer, the elf that created the Vortex and saved the world, and you have a prophecy which states that the High Elves would endure as long as you do. You would be a pretty arrogant dick, so it's no surprise that Imrik, who is actually all of those things, is a pretty arrogant dick as well. In saying that though, he does back up his pride with limitless bravery, as well as never breaking oaths, which is his saving grace, and the only thing keeping me from flat out calling him a narcissist. Imrik's story begins in a field, fresh off getting his ass whooped by some Dark Elves. Before they can ravage his rectum, a massive dragon called Mithantilian comes to the rescue and barbecues some druchi. He was then like, "Yo Imrik, I am the most powerful living dragon on Ulthuan, and now I am your bitch." Because apparently dragons are enablers and thinks it's funny to feed High Elves' egos. Well, Imrik got pretty high and mighty with his new dragon pal, and he began whipping Caledor back into shape. See, whilst High Elves do ride dragons, the dragons and riders are almost exclusively from Caledor, hence why you don't see Teclis or Tyrion ever riding a dragon, despite being way cooler than Imrik. Imrik woke as many dragons as he could and rallied the dragon princes to him. He then went off on numerous crusades throughout the world, slaying monsters and forces of chaos and destruction along the way. He claimed that these were for the glory of Ulthuan, but to be honest, none of the threats he destroyed were a threat to Ulthuan, so it just seemed like he wanted his dragons to go brrrr to stoke his ever-increasing ego. Did I mention that he resented Tyrion and Teclis, the two elves that had saved Ulthuan time and time again, just because they were considered more heroic than he was? His resentment only grew, as in all these jihads he was waging across the world, only Caledorian blood was spilled. Like, yeah, no shit Imrik, it's because Caledor is the only realm who was partaking. During one such incursion, he aided the forces of Bretonnia during the siege of Corone against a massive Beastmen army. Oh, you think he cared about the Bretonnians? No, he was happy to let them die. However, Corone was home to some elven waystones that needed to be protected. During the battle, Imrik was knocked off his mount by a Cygor, who was in turn then killed by the Bretonnian king, saving Imrik's life. After the battle was won, Imrik went home sulking that the Bretonnian king got more kills than he did during the battle. He held a genuine grudge and resented the man who saved him, because he saved him. This brings him to around his appearance in Total War Warhammer 2, which is why he isn't in Caledor, but instead on one of his many crusades throughout the world. So when people are like, "Oh my god, CA, why do you have to put the leader of Caledor halfway across the map?" It's because that's likely where Caledor would have been at the time, only returning to Ulthuan towards the beginnings of the End Times. It turns out that riding a dragon and making friends are two very different fields of expertise, as despite Imrik's legend, pretty much everyone outside of Caledor thought he was an obnoxious douchebag. The Phoenix King Finubar flat out refused to meet with Imrik upon his return for this reason, sparking Imrik to get mad and start declaring his intentions to become Phoenix King, not that anyone really cared. And that pretty much covers his lore until the end times. Imrik was not a very fleshed out character until the end times. To be fair, neither was Altharion or a number of other elven characters. It's during the end times, however, that Games Workshop decided he was worth investing some effort into. Just because you put effort into something doesn't mean it won't turn out horrific. I put a lot of effort into pushing out a demonic shit after eating 3 burgers in a row last night. Doesn't mean the result wasn't horrific. The end times kicks off with a twin-tailed comet streaming across the sky, promoting Finubar to go insane due to the writers deciding that Malekith was the true Phoenix King all along, and that all the other Phoenix Kings were pretenders, and that if Malekith had only originally stayed in the flames of Asuryan for a couple more seconds, he would have become the chosen one. As such, all Phoenix Kings since Anarion were all cursed with insanity and pride, doomed to fail. This is stupid because A number of Phoenix Kings had very successful and prosperous reigns and died peacefully of natural causes, and B, the Phoenixes, Phoenixguard, Caledor, and Teclis were all empowered by Asuryan to fight against Malekith and the Dark Elves. It was just a horrific retcon to try justify a terrible redemption arc for Malekith. I'm not against Malekith being redeemed, but he should have had to earn it, not been entitled to it. Goddamn elves and their entitlements. As such, Finubar allowed Imrik an audience and basically told Imrik that the end was nigh, and that Finubar thought he would die soon. Imrik was like, oh my god. So does that mean the position for the Phoenix King will open up soon? Cause this is amazing! Now I can get everyone to come on my dragon jihads with me. Soon after that, Alariel vanished to go help the Wood Elves cure Ish's dementia, and Finubar locked himself in his tower and was low-key assassinated by Teclis. Like I said, stupid lore. Imrik called for a vote for the next Phoenix King. Despite being unliked, he was a legendary hero, so people did consider him for the role, until Tyrion walked in and was like, sit down kid, and quickly won the election for Phoenix King. Imrik, being a sore loser, was like, pfft, fine then, but everyone who didn't vote for me doesn't get to play with my dragons. Because apparently dragons are totally cool with letting the world burn if some high elf is having a tish. Goddamn enabler dragons. Despite Imrik not pledging to Tyrion, most of the Caledorian Dragon Lords did anyway, as the world was ending and it would be stupid to go back to Caledor to sulk about it. Imrik would encounter Tyrion again, once again being like, kiss my dick bitch, you don't get my dragons. So Tyrion was like, listen here you little shit, stop being an entitled prick. I banish Caledor from the Phoenix Court until you beg for forgiveness for being a twat. Imrik obviously wasn't going to beg for anything, being Imrik and all. And many of the Caledorian Dragon Lords thought it was unfair of Tyrion to banish their realm, due to one elf. Some say this was due to the influence of Cain on Tyrion, but I would just say that Tyrion was rightfully pissed off that Imrik was trying to blackmail everyone by removing one of the High Elf's greatest assets of war. Imrik then received a vision from Caledor Dragon Tamer, being like, hey little dude, so turns out Malekith is the rightful heir and you should totally help him invade Ulthuan and you should totally kill your High Elf countrymen for the lols, Lamau, Kek. And Imrik was like, okay. Malekith then returned hundreds of stolen dragon eggs to Caledor, as well as removed the spell that made it super hard to wake dragons up. And that was that. Imrik was now the servant of Malekith. When the Dark Elves invaded Ulthuan, Imrik and his Dragon Lords attacked the Elven gates from behind, giving the Dark Elves victory and allowing them to access Ulthuan. The writers try and make Imrik somewhat likable by being like, but yeah, he was really disgusted that he was helping the Druchii, while his dragon incinerated his own people. But yeah, it's just stupid. Imrik becomes Malekith's number 2 in the Elven Civil War. It's hard to tell you who picked which side because pretty much everyone ended up either dead or aligned with Malekith. Except for Helebron, she went full Khorne worship mode after Tyrion/Cain got killed. Before Tyrion died, however, Imrik got so full of his own shit that he genuinely thought he could beat Tyrion in a duel, the avatar of Cain. In a duel. To Imrik's credit, he was able to open up a rent in Tyrion's ass before Tyrion kicked the shit out of him. Before Tyrion would end his life, however, 3 legendary Dragon Lords had to come to Imrik's rescue. All 3 were instantly killed, but Imrik was able to escape. The plot tries to justify this by saying that the rent that Imrik caused in his armour was the rent that Alith the Nar shot through, hence meaning Imrik was the cause, or a cause, of Tyrion's death. However, Tyrion's fight against Orion was the real moment that Tyrion's armour was rented open. So basically, Imrik caused the death of 3 elven heroes because he convinced himself that he was a match for Tyrion. Imrik was then again beaten by Loki of Fellheart, but before he could be killed, some random ghost bitch sniped Loki from behind. Teclis undoes the vortex and the elves set up camp in Athel Loren, with Malekith as their king. Now with Eltharion dead, Alith and Emo, Tyrion dead, and Teclis still being a nerd, Imrik was now the dashing high elf hero, which was really jarring considering how unlikable he was. They made him seem like the glue holding the elves together, with Malekith only not executing everyone who disliked him purely because he was worried that it would upset Imrik. Apparently Imrik was so brave and inspiring that he was the reason why the heavily depressed elven race didn't commit mass suicide in the face of the apocalypse and the destruction of their home. Don't get me wrong, I may shit on Imrik, but I shit on everyone else anyway. Except Cetra. I do like Imrik and his aesthetic. There are no other Dragon Rider type characters other than him, and if I'm honest, I would be an entitled little dick if I was given ownership of the realm of dragons as well. He's brave, honest, never breaks a vow, and the best part? He's free. I'm pretty keen to pick him up and play him when he drops because as I have stated, dragons are fucking awesome. And that does us for today guys, the lore and story of Prince Imrik of Caledor. If you enjoyed the video and want to support the channel, then consider jumping on my Patreon. It's boatloaded full of 100% pure Colombian Warhammer hentai. Only $1 gives you access to everything. $10 and you get access to the hentai calendar that's in production. So far it's cost me over $2,000 to put together, so you won't be disappointed. Click the subscribe button, then click the real subscribe button to keep up to date with my videos. Join the Discord for more memes, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.